Grand Theft Auto is a game franchise that needs no introduction, with it being arguably one of the most popular gaming franchises ever made. But due to this, and due to the franchise's vast open world, diverse characters, intriguing stories, and overall high quality gameplay, people have used these elements to create their own myths, legends, headcanons, stories, and creepypastas to help add more to the game's world building. So in this video, I have compiled some of the best, worst, scariest, obscure, and so on creepypastas to go over and read, with some help from the legend himself, Dr. Creepypasta, the creator of the first original FNAF animatronics, to help narrate some parts in this video. So I'm not going to explain what an iceberg chart is or video is, because at this point everyone should already know what one is, but I do need to explain how this iceberg video is ranked and formatted. The top of the iceberg chart has some of the most popular stories, and as we go down, they become more obscure and scary, along with better written. Kind of. Some of these stories are just really bad and or poorly written, so I tried to fix a lot of the spelling and grammar errors these stories had, but some errors might have slipped through the cracks because there is a lot. So this is your official warning for that. Honestly, this list isn't 100% perfect, and this along with the stories are kind of just all over the place, but I tried my best to balance it out and find good and bad stories. But anyways, if you need something to listen to in the background while working, studying, or to just go to sleep to, then this is the perfect video. But without further ado, make sure to subscribe if you love creepypastas or GTA, and let's get into layer 1 of the Grand Theft Auto creepypasta iceberg. Sightings is the first story we go over in this video, and it goes over and talks about the many myths and legends the GTA series is known for, and adds on to these existing legends by adding more details, information, and so on in this story, especially by creating new ones. This story isn't exactly the best, and there's a bunch of grammar errors that I had to fix, and it doesn't really make too much sense, but it's a good start for this video, so let's get into it. Did you know that the ghost of Jolene Cranley Evans wasn't the only ghost roaming around Los Santos? Because a few players have reported other ghost sightings in Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto games are pretty much known for crimes and its free roam into the open world. Now, the first ghost comes from Harmony, from the dollar pills. Around 1, there was a slight possibility that you could in fact hear ghost noises nearby the dollar pills. That's very distorted, odd, and even a horrifying sound. That was the sound of a man talking in a distorted manner. However, there really isn't a figure in the area, but you could still possibly hear some very interesting sounds that don't even sound human. The second ghost comes from San Andreas. We should go to the Dreamview Motel between midnight and 2. Now, this ghost is believed to be around the porches of the motel. However, the ghost is said to be very rare and would often appear looking at you with a very menacing look. It sometimes would also disappear. The third one isn't exactly a ghost, but is actually something very mysterious. Go to the tip of the Polito Forest right by San Andreas, and there is a very small possibility that you may see a city way far in the distance from the ocean. You can't reach this mysterious city, and it appears to be 2D, but there's also a very possible chance that the city is to be seen upside down. The fourth yet again isn't a ghost, but rather a building located at Lagos on Kudo. There is a pathway there, and sometimes you could eventually find a house or some sort of building that would appear. Many players have said that they have seen this building and that it never appears again, like it will never come back and will only be seen once every saved playthrough. The fifth ghost is actually seen in the Vinewood Cemetery. There are said to be many ghosts roaming around the graveyard. Talking, laughing, and much more is heard in that specific cemetery. There is even the voice of Steve Haynes. All you have to do is hold the vintage pistol out for around 5 minutes. The sixth ghost is Trevor's shadow. During the night hours, there is a small possibility of Trevor Phillips' shadow coming out as a separate figure stuck in the walls. It's likely to be seen stuck standing there, but sometimes has a possibility to move on its own. He would sometimes even have eyes. Trevor's shadow has been reported by a few people. The seventh ghost is located at the golf course nearby Rockford Hills. The spirit will be seen as a man with the fancy style from the early 20th century. The spirit is said to even stalk you when you're walking around, even when you're at the house. Now, don't call me a psychopath for the 8th ghost, because you're going to have to commit a mass murder anywhere, especially Trevor's safe house or Pacific Bluffs, because after that murder happens, stay there for long enough and you'll possibly hear the screams of the victims you killed. The final ghosts are actually in your house in Grand Theft Auto. These ghosts are even haunting it as I speak. They are very rare to find and could even manage to attack you. These spirits are extremely rare to find, just like atmospheric anomalies from the skies. It appears that the ghost of Mount Gordo, though, isn't the only spirit in Grand Theft Auto 5.
Ratman is an urban legend and myth in Grand Theft Auto 4 that I'm sure many GTA fans have heard of, or have at least seen videos of, as he is one of the most popular myths and legends in the franchise. The legend has also creeped its way into GTA 5, where, just like GTA 4, many people have claimed to hear and see him in the sewers of the game, and because of these claims, Ratman was born. But this story takes a different approach compared to the last story, where it is narrated by an NPC in the game living in Liberty City, where he has a strange encounter related to the Ratman. So let's read it. Liberty City really comes to life at night. During the day, it's crowded, but not quite the same as at night. Nothing beats sitting on top of a skyscraper and staring down in the array of lights blinking and flashing in every direction. Occasionally, you can see a helicopter or plane pass by in the distance. It's all so full of life. Who would have thought that just under everyone's feet is the ongoing network of tunnels and subway tracks? The train run all through the night, from the lighted loaded stations into the depths of those damned tunnels. Down in the heart of the trams lies a vast intersection of tracks. This area is also where a couple hundred homeless people flock to escape the cold and the police. Most people like to call it Hobo Land. While I've not been down there myself, I've heard quite a few stories from people that have. A couple accidents happened which caused the trains to shut down right on the tracks. People there conversed with the homeless people and they came back with wild stories of a strange being that apparently lived down there. This man could actually run swiftly, almost in a scurrying fashion, according to several witnesses. The story eventually evolved to where the man was supposed to have excess body hair and the face of a rat, deeming the name Ratman. It made the nighttime subway ride home all the more unnerving. I work in one of those skyscrapers you see at Liberty City. Most of the time, I get off at 9 p.m., just as the nightlife is starting to pick up. But it's almost always dark by then. A few of my coworkers take the subway home at night too, one of whom is actually a close friend. At some point, around a year ago, my friend, we'll call him Jordy, was caught up in one of those trams breaking down. Not even 300 yards away was a maintenance entrance and exit for the tram workers, so Jordy told the driver that he would just walk up the exit and ride a taxi home. While the rest of the riders stayed aboard, Jordy climbed off and started his short hike out of the subway. The only thing that is known after that is that around 4 a.m., police found Jordy walking down the street in a daze. He was covered in an orangish goo with the same texture as blood and stank like feces. It took a couple of weeks for Jordy to even respond, and once he did, he still had no memory of what happened between approximately 10:30 and 4 a.m. when he was found. I tried to talk to Jordy since he was a good friend of mine, but he didn't appear to be the same man until at least 3 months later. After that, he returned to work and resumed his life, but still talked noticeably less than before. One day, he and I were alone during lunch hour, and he started to speak again. It was the first time I had actually seen him speak more than a couple of words since the incident. "I saw the Ratman," he said, staring at his glass. You saw what?" I asked, thinking he was still delusional. "Actually, I fought him," Jordy said. "He just came running at me, and before I knew it, I was being clawed up. It was mainly just scratches, but just the way he moved, it was so fast." Jordy shuddered. I managed to land one good hit on him and dug my thumbs in his eyes before he started emitting this orange-colored blood. That was what really got me. The smell. Ugh, it was unbearable. I wasn't sure how to react. "What happened next?" I asked him. "He ran off after I got his eye, but I'm certain he didn't die," Jordy said, avoiding eye contact. "He's still out there, somewhere, and I have to finish him off." After that, Jordy became obsessed with this figure living in the subways. He'd often stay up all night riding the trams back and forth, hoping that it would break down. Other times, Jordy would actually take the extreme step of climbing down onto the tracks and following alongside them into the darkness. Armed with a camera and a knife, he snapped pictures of anything that looked suspicious. I only saw Jordy a handful of times after he became so fixated on the Rat Man. Once I visited his apartment. It was absolutely littered with newspaper clippings, sketches, printed articles, and alleged pictures, all of which supported the cryptid living in the subway. They dangled from his ceiling and covered the floors, walls, and even his bed. Jordy himself looked horrible as well. He rarely showered or shaved anymore, so he stank along with his apartment. I tried to convince him to go get help and try to clean himself up along with his home, but he refused, and I eventually left, defeated and worried about my friend. A few weeks later, Jordy quit showing up at work. It was just like that. No notice, no excuse, just complete absence. When my boss tried to phone his house, there was no answer. We all decided it'd be best to visit the apartment again since he lived alone. When we approached the apartment complex, there was a large group of police officers surrounding the entrance. Apparently, Jordy had wandered off into the black tunnels of the Underground Railway one night and never returned. A full-scale search was started 3 days after he didn't return to his apartment building. The search team ventured toward the heart of the subway, all the way to flocks of homeless people where they questioned many of them. A few of the more competent hobos reported seeing a troubled man matching Jordy's description. According to them, the man thought to be Jordy was distraught and nearly sprinting towards one of the tunnels. He was holding a flashlight and had it aimed in the direction he was running. After that, nobody saw or heard anything else. After 3 more weeks, the search was closed and Jordy was given up for lost. There was never a body recovered, nor any evidence to suggest any fate for my friend. Since then, I've avoided using the subway. I just can't seem to bring myself to see those tunnels again. However, some of my coworkers still take the trams home at night. The trains still break down at times, and stories still come trailing back from the depths. The homeless people will see a furry figure traversing the dark passageways of the tunnels. However, now, there's a new series of sightings. Every so often, it is reported that beams of light sometimes flash past distant tunnels. The description matches almost perfectly with that of a flashlight. Part of me feels that Jordy died the night he ventured off the train and fought whatever that was down in the tunnel. But the other part of me thinks he's still down there. And whatever it is he needs to finish, well, I hope he succeeds.
GTA San Andreas Corrupted is one of my personal favorite stories on this list, not because it's that scary, good, or even well written, but because it evokes a feeling I once had as a child while playing GTA San Andreas. This story is heavily inspired by the many myths and legends this game has, and explores what seems to be a corrupted version of this game that seems to have made its own legend, but this isn't why it's my favorite. This story is one of my favorites because I can put myself in the shoes of the narrator. When I was a kid, I would explore the map of GTA San Andreas and look for these supposedly quote-unquote real legends, and in this story, well, the same thing can be said for the narrator, so let's read it. I beat every mission in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas within a week of getting it as a present on Christmas Day of 2008. It might not seem like much, but being a teenager at the time, in some middle of bumfuck nowhere town, it was one of the pinnacles of my life's achievements at the time. The only other thing I held in such high regard was my prize CD collection, consisting of every shitty nu metal band that you can think of. Based on that, you probably assume I'm a big fan of the game. Well, prepare to be disappointed. There was something that happened that made me stop playing San Andreas forever, something I still can't explain to this day. It was the summer of 2010. Usually I would have been outside with my high school pals, but it was a brutally hot day. You took one step outside and then all of a sudden you were boiling alive. I laid in my bed for a solid hour, bored out of my mind. Then with some resolve, I dragged myself out of bed to rummage around the closet. It had been a while since I played San Andreas, so I decided now was a good time as any. any. I fished my PS2 and box of games out, and after fighting with the maze of wires behind the dresser, I got everything plugged in. With the GTA San Andreas disc in the console, I thought I was set. Nope, my heart dropped as I saw it, the accursed error screen with the red fog, or as some like to call it, the red screen of death. Honestly, part of me just wanted to call it a day and watch TV instead. However, I relented. With the disc in hand, I wiped it with a cloth and then held my breath as I put it into the disc tray. The game booted up with no issues and I breathed a sigh of relief. The first thing I noticed was that the intro credit cutscene was completely silent. I turned up the volume on the TV and still nothing. At the moment, I didn't really find it odd. I was more annoyed more than anything. Then as this cutscene progressed, it became so dark that you couldn't see anything. Assuming it was due to the disc being faulty, I just skipped the cutscenes and went straight to gameplay. The game played as normal, no sound issues or anything like that. I killed a few pedestrians and used a jetpack cheat so I could fly around, and soon enough, I found myself lost in the gameplay. However, after some time, I noticed something on the minimap. There was an icon for a mission. This made no sense, as I already completed every mission in the game. Not only that, but the mission icon was smack dab in the middle of Backo Beyond. If you've played, you'd know it's a forested area with no significance to the story. Regardless, I made my way over to the mission. Sure enough, there it was, in a clearing next to some trees. I stepped into the highlighted red mission area to activate it. It was then that my game froze. But in the split second before the game froze, I swore I saw something move in the corner of my eye. Something in the woods. After staring at the screen for a few seconds, I restarted the PlayStation. Once I was back in the game, I noticed that the mission icon was gone. Oh well, I went and played the game like normal, using cheats to stock myself up with weapons, while also going on a rampage and battling it out with the police. With the police hot on my tail, I ran into the woods of Backo Beyond. Then something bizarre happened. My wanted level completely vanished. The weather had also changed too. Now it was foggy at night. I went over to the spot where I had seen the mission marker last time, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. At that point, I said screw it and put in the cheat to spawn a jetpack again. Nothing happened. I tried it 3 more times to no avail. Since cheats weren't working for some godforsaken reason, I ran out to the closest road and waited for a car to drive by so I could hijack it. 30 seconds of waiting turned into a minute, then 2 minutes, and before I knew it, I had waited 3 minutes with no car in sight. The roads were completely barren. Just fog and trees as far as the eye could see. CJ was standing there looking just as confused and annoyed as I was. Just as I was about to put the controller down, I saw hazy movement in the tree line. With a death grip on the joystick, I sprinted to where I saw the movement. Nothing. I was certain it wasn't game textures playing tricks on my eyes. I jogged all the way through Backo Beyond and into Shady Creeks, determined to find whatever it was that I saw. Throughout the entire journey, I thought I saw movement in the trees, only to realize it was some fog or a bush. When I approached the shady cabin, I became acutely aware of something peculiar. A sound. Breathing. It seemed to be the same deep breathing sound that plays when CJ enters stealth mode. But the more I listened, the more I was convinced it wasn't coming from CJ, it seemed to be coming from behind him. I spun around only to be met by another frozen screen. The game's sound stuttered repeatedly, sounding like nails on a chalkboard. This time, however, I could see something on the frozen screen. Something tucked far away in the fog. A blurry figure. The next day at school, I told my friend Xander about it. His response was to laugh and say that I was a fucking liar. But after some convincing, he agreed to come over after school so I could show him. Xander made his way over to my house at sunset. Once I got multiplayer mode set up, I found it was difficult to convince Xander to follow my lead. He was more preoccupied with murdering pedestrians while screaming obscenities. But after a while, he got bored and finally agreed to follow me. I led him to the woods of Backo Beyond, and soon enough the same thing happened. The weather changed to a foggy night, and pedestrians stopped spawning. Xander became silent. I got the impression that he was kinda spooked. We searched the area, occasionally cracking a joke to break the silence. And we had found nothing, so I decided it was a good time to go take a quick bathroom break. Once I came back into the room, I noticed Xander was pale. He started barraging me with a bunch of questions and then accused me of modding the game. I tried to explain to him it's practically impossible to mod a PS2. Then he told me what happened when I was gone. He had seen what he described as a thing in the fog. After trying to shoot it, the screen flickered and then the thing was gone. As creepy as it was, it also boosted our excitement. We decided then and there to pull an all-nighter and attempt to find out whatever the hell was going on. Hours flew by, countless sodas were downed and bags of chips devoured as we searched every nook and cranny in the woods of Backo Beyond and Shady Creek. We made our way to the shady cabin and I was certain we would see something crazy, but nothing happened. At one point, we both swore we saw movement in the far off distance on Mount Chiliad. I wasn't entirely sure if we were just psyching each other out and seeing things at that point. Naturally, we began to grow tired and bored, and before long, we had both dozed off to sleep with the game still running. When I fell asleep, I had a bizarre nightmare. I found myself inside the game being chased through the woods of Backle Beyond by something I couldn't see. No matter how much I ran, the woods went on and on. I don't know how long I was out for, but I remember being woken from my sleep by Xander. He told me in a trembling half-whispered, half-shout, "Wake the fuck up." I did, and then I understood why he sounded so freaked out. There was an eyeball filling the TV screen, bloodshot. Behind it was only darkness. At that moment, I was convinced it was staring directly at us. All the while, that eerie breathing sound emanated from the TV speakers. I practically pissed myself as I grabbed for the controller and started rapidly pressing every button. Just then, the screen went black and the sound began to stutter, before it turned into an unbearable screech. I rushed over to the PlayStation and yanked out the power cord. Silence. Just like that, it had all stopped. Xander and I looked at each other, and I imagined he was thinking the same thing as me. Holy shit. Xander and I agreed we wanted nothing to do with the game, and I sold it in the garage sale my family had the week after. I tried to post about this experience in some GTA forums, but I was just laughed at and told I was an attention-seeking dipshit, and that was the end of it, or so I thought. After a month, I logged into the forums and noticed I had a message in my inbox. The sender had no username attached, but there was something in the message. A single picture. The picture that was in the message is something that gives me chills every time I think about it. It was a picture of me and Xander passed out that night. It was taken from where the TV was.
The Stalker is the first entry for Layer 2, and is one of the most popular creepypastas on this list, with it having over 200,000 views on YouTube, and with it being narrated by and created by creepypastas. This story takes the same premise as the last couple, with it being heavily inspired by the many myths and legends of GTA San Andreas, with this story being particularly inspired by the Umbrella Man, which, well, I'll let the creepypasta story explain. So I'm a large fan of the Grand Theft Auto series. They're basically the only games I come back to time and time again. From their expansive storylines to the large open world playgrounds, GTA San Andreas was and still is considered the best in the franchise. It has the largest map and the most things to do, but it also held the most mysteries, from Bigfoot to Leatherface, the ghost cars, and some disturbing towns and pedestrians, one of which is a serial killer that stalks their prey for days, getting them paranoid and ruining their lives. Such behavior bewilders me, but it's only a game myth, so I probably shouldn't overanalyze it. After finishing GTA 4 and having a large amount of hype for the release of GTA 5, I figured I might as well give San Andreas a playthrough to tide me over. So, I bought the PC version of the game off Amazon. I didn't trust Steam because I like physical copies of my games. I got it a couple days later and tried to install it, but the CD key was a dud. I asked the seller, but he never responded. Having felt cheated and kind of lazy, I just downloaded it off Pirate Bay. I'm not paying for it twice, and proceeded to install it. Once installed, I booted it up, and a rush of welcomed and not so welcome memories flooded my mind. I played through a couple of times and noticed that a pedestrian from the last Ventura's Desert was hanging around Grove Street. I wondered what he was doing there. This is not his usual spawning location. And being the bored person that I am, I beat him to death. He strangely dropped a camera. I picked it up and started to take scenic pictures around San Andreas. I progressed onward through the story with the camera in hand so I could relive these moments at any time I wanted. I unlocked the Backgo Beyond area behind the map, and I sought out to find Bigfoot. But strangely, that pedestrian from the desert was there, with me in the woods. No one ever spawned in the woods except for the ghost cars, but those are normal. Since I recently lost my guns, I was too lazy to kill them, so I just wandered off and explored the rest of the area. But whenever I looked behind me, I glanced at a figure running away from my line of sight. It felt very creepy. So I felt I needed a rest from the game after a long time of playing and decided to quit for now and look at the pictures I took. I went to the folder that contained the photos I took with the camera and saw that they were photos that I never remember taking. What freaked me out even more was the fact that most of the photos were of my player character during the early stages of my playthrough. At that point, I didn't have the camera. The way they were taken was strange in itself, as it looked like they were taken by a person who was hiding from me, like a stalker. Any sane person would have stopped playing and deleted the game from their hard drive, but considering the firepower I could get, I decided to find and kill the stalker. Again. Maybe the author of the game decided to install this stalker mod, so I took his challenge. I unlocked the Lost Ventura's desert and searched for the pedestrian. And in an abandoned shack near the military base, I found him. I pulled out my chainsaw as I thought it would feel better if I used it, and the first thing that happened was he got decapitated. Strangely, as I expected for blood to come gushing out of the hole where his head used to be, it didn't. He didn't die either. He walked slowly towards me with a powerful punch and sent my character flying. After I woke up in the hospital, no pedestrians were spawning. It was like a ghost town. I spawned a car and drove around and nothing. No one spawned. Suddenly, my character started screaming like he was on fire. Once I left the car, he burst out into flames. I ran around in hopes of extinguishing him, and then the camera switched to a view inside of a sniper scope. It was aimed directly at my character's head. I could not control anything. I can't move my character. The menus were all unresponsive, and I just watched as my character's head got blown off. Out of nowhere, I got the blue screen of death, and it annoyed me until I noticed what the error in the blue screen said. You are not alone. It really freaked me out to the point where I was shaking. I almost ran out of my room, but I figured I needed to delete this game before it destroys my hard drive, so I did just that. Afterwards, my antivirus detected something. It found an unidentifiable virus tagged Stalker virus. It got removed, thank goodness, and then I decided to look at the photos again. I was sure the virus took more photos of my character. But then I saw photos of not my character, but me. From my webcam. My heart started pounding because I knew some creep has my photos somewhere on the internet. I scrolled down and saw something even more disturbing. Photos from outside my window. Oh my gosh, was he watching me? Did he track my location through that virus? In one of the photos, it says something that really haunts my nightmares. See you soon.
Now, GTA San Andreas Limited Edition is the best and worst story so far in this video, and the only reason it's not lower in this Iceberg is because this creepypasta is actually kinda popular somehow, or at least it was like 10 years ago, and it's honestly just too good to be put lower. But anyways, I'm not even gonna try to explain it, so just listen to this masterpiece. It all started when I lost my copy of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I was on eBay, and I saw something out of the ordinary. The price was only $2.99. I was surprised because it is called GTA San Andreas Limited Edition. Me, being curious, bought it. A few days later, it arrived in the mail. When I took it out of the box, the cover only said sale. I ignored it and put the disc in my PS2. However, something was not right. Instead of the Rockstar logos, it went straight to a new game. It started off with CJ in Liberty City, walking alone in an alleyway. He then gets a call from Sweet saying that their mother died. This was so strange because I never saw that cutscene anywhere. Anyway, When CJ gets to Los Santos, he doesn't take a taxi. He steals a car and drives until Officer Tenpenny arrests him. Tenpenny doesn't drop CJ off in the alleyway, he drops him off all the way at Mount Chiliad. Then, blasting out of my TV, I hear a very realistic scream. As I am now in control, I investigate and find something disgusting. I see Salvatore Leone gutted with entrails all over. He is dangling from his colon. The screen blacks out and I am now in control of some random pedestrian. I go outside and the graphics are crystal clear. Me, totally shocked, tried to turn off my PS2, but it just wouldn't. Suddenly, I hear a very panicked scream, "Play the game!" As I have no choice, I reach for my controller and start playing. The game had started a mission entitled Kill Him. I do as the mission says, and it tells me to kill this well-dressed African American. Okay. As I killed him, oh my god. As I killed him, Channel 6 News came on my TV and I was completely shocked. President Obama and all of his associates have been brutally murdered in a shooting in Los Angeles. I'm trying to hold myself together. A photo of this man matched the pedestrian that I was playing as. Me, cringing on the floor, crying for assassinating the president. My game says mission passed. We have notified police. Seconds later, the SWAT team busts on my door and arrests me. The game still inside of my PS2. Yeah, that was the story, and honestly, it's peak. I had to put it this high, you know, it's just too good. It's too good. Okay, anyways, let's get to the serious creepypastas again. Oh my god.
Now, this was originally the first creepypasta to be featured in this video, but after further review, that would have been a terrible start to this video. This story isn't exactly the best when it comes to grammar or making sense, so fair warning for this entry, as if things don't make sense or if the words I'm saying aren't grammatically correct, it's not my fault, but I'll try my best to make it make sense. So anyways, let's get into this. I never finished GTA 5. My name is Alexander, but everyone just calls me Alex. I am now in a wheelchair due to my missing legs, but I wasn't at the time of the event. I'm going to tell you about back then. My legs were there and they worked perfectly fine. I used to play GTA 5 uncontrollably. When it first came out, just like every other teenager, a lot of my friends finished the game within weeks, but I wasn't the competitive type. I like moving around the free world, exploring the big map of GTA 5. Also, I didn't have as much time to play as my friends did. My grandmother was in a wheelchair and often needed a lot of help. She had a stroke and she couldn't move anything. Besides her hand, she had a bell attached to her hand, which she used when she needed help with anything. She lived with my father, my mother, and I. My parents help here with most things, but I like to help her as well. Whenever she rang the bell, I was there within seconds. One day, I was home alone with my grandmother. She watched TV in the living room, and I was getting bored of playing GTA. I played a few missions and drove around randomly shooting people for some time with nothing else to do. I continued playing, thinking I would keep playing until my parents came home. I believe it was around 8 p.m. It was winter at the time, so it was pretty dark outside. Being killed by the police in GTA wasn't so bad, and that's how my shootings and killings of random people always ended. I only lost $5, but I had already finished the first heist mission, so that amount of money wasn't much to me. At the hospital, I started looking for a car. No one likes struggling around shitty cars. But unfortunately, I died near Trevor's trailer, so I respawned to a hospital in the countryside. As many of you GTA players know, this is not where you find a car to brag about, so I ended up with an old car. The type of car doesn't have much relevance to the story though, so I'll go ahead and move on. I was driving around in the mountains of Tonga Hills when I spotted a woman. She was no typical woman of the game, and I'm sure I had never seen her before. She was way more realistic than anything else. I mean, really realistic. Her face was so detailed. It looked like a photograph. Her face was pale and her eyes were big and black. Her hair as if it had never been washed. She was wearing a long red dress with marks of dirt in it. It was not a modern dress though, more like a dress from the 50s or 60s. She didn't really belong in the hills and, well, she didn't really belong in the game. She was walking up the hill with her head looking down on the ground at first. She triggered my curiosity, so I drove closer. I shouldn't have driven closer though. I wasn't freaked out until she raised her head and said, "Hello." Both her voice and her face were way too realistic for this game. It sounded like her voice was coming from all over my room and not my speakers. It wasn't an electronic voice or anything like when you hear in games. It wasn't possible to point out exactly where her voice was coming from. She looked nothing like I'd ever seen in a game, and she sounded like nothing I'd ever seen in a game before. She was so realistic with her grin. It gave me the chills and made me feel really uncomfortable. I reacted to this by hitting her with my car, which knocked her over. I guess trying to kill it is a pretty common solution for everything in GTA. She had been knocked over by my car, so I drove over her legs while she laid on the ground. I shouldn't have done that. I really shouldn't have done that. Her haunting screams were unbearable. It sounded nothing like any of the typical screams from GTA or any game whatsoever. Her screams were so terrifying that I cringed to my toes. My heart started beating faster and faster. Her screams sounded more like it was coming from everywhere in my room, then coming from my speakers. I really shouldn't have driven over her legs. She kept screaming in agony, and the screams turned louder and louder. I was frozen with fear. I wanted to turn off the game, but I couldn't move. It was then the screaming stopped. Everything went quiet. She looked up and looked at me. I'm not talking about my GTA character. She looked through the screen right at me. Her words almost gave me a heart attack. "Now, why did you have to do that, Alex?" I really shouldn't have driven over her legs. She started crawling towards me while staring right into my eyes with a horrific grin. Her grin was still wide, reaching from ear to ear. Her eyes were bigger and blacker than before, and her mouth had opened with blood coming out of it. "Alex," she said in a deep voice, with the blood from her mouth making bubbles. She crawled faster with determination. She was heading for me, not my GTA character. She was heading right towards the screen, and she knew my name. I could hear the bone in her legs crack as she was towing her crushed legs across the ground. With terror, I unplugged my console and my room turned pitch black. I quickly turned on the light. It was quiet. The only sound I could hear was the wind blowing outside my window. I kept listening, and I noticed that I was sweating rapidly. I shouldn't have driven over her legs. I almost jumped when I heard my grandmother ring her bell. I walked slowly towards the living room, kept listening for any abnormal sounds. My grandmother then rang the bell again, and when I reached the living room, I stopped in the doorway. My grandmother's wheelchair was standing in front of the TV. Did you call, or?" I said in a hoarse voice. The wheelchair started turning slowly toward me. I then noticed that my grandma's gray hair was replaced by black and what looked like unwashed hair. While the wheelchair was turning towards me, I could hear the haunting sounds of crushed legs being dragged on the floor from the wheelchair. The pale woman in the wheelchair looked at me with big black eyes and a grin, full of blood, and said, "Why did you do that, Alex?" I really shouldn't have driven over her legs.
Now, this story goes under many names, with some of those being the GTA Theory, GTA 4 Theory, or GTA Explained, and isn't exactly a creepypasta, but more of a theory that is told in a creepypasta story. So I guess you could just call this a theory. I don't know why the creator of the story called it a creepypasta, but I guess when reading the story, it has a bunch of tropes that are primarily seen in creepypastas. So I guess maybe that's why, and maybe after I read it, you'll agree. So let's get into it. Grand Theft Auto 4, as you probably know, is a very popular sandbox third-person shooter. In the game, you play as Niko Bellic, an illegal immigrant who travels to the USA from an unnamed Eastern European country. The game itself is enormous. The game takes place on a series of islands that are seemingly in the middle of the ocean. You know that it's in the US, but you can't travel anywhere outside of Liberty City and Alderney, the two in-game cities. If you try to leave, you quote-unquote die. You can also see that there are no other land masses outside of the city. This is odd, as the game maintains not only that you are playing in the USA, but also that the city is able to function as well as its real-life counterpart, New York City. The second weird part is that you cannot die. Whenever your character dies, he just respawns at a hospital. You can jump in front of a car, or you can fall off of a skyscraper, or you can get shot in the face, but your character cannot die. Also, whenever you get arrested by the police, you get released after they accept a bribe and take your guns. Even if you kill 50 police officers or go on a shooting spree and blow up a bus, you literally cannot go to prison. This is especially odd when one considers that there's a prison right there in the game. The third odd part of the game is the background and role of the main character. Nico's backstory is revealed in parts throughout the game. He came from an unnamed country, presumably in former Yugoslavia. His country was torn apart by civil war, and he ended up committing various implied atrocities. When he meets one of his old enemies, Darkov, near the end of the game, Nico has an option to exact his revenge and kill him or let him live. Darkov was the one who brought the civil war to Nico's village and orchestrated a mass murder that killed all of Nico's friends, encouraging him to join the fighting and perform unspeakable acts himself. All through the game, the player is given the impression that Nico is only trying to be a nice guy. He just wants to help his cousin Roman, and then ends up the victim of a long series of events that turns him into a criminal and a hitman. When he got off of the Platypus, the ship that took him to Liberty City, he was looking for a new beginning and the American dream. However, Nico endures a long series of tumultuous events and at the game's end suffers the ultimate loss of either Roman or Nico's prospective love interest, Kate. It all seems so horrible for Nico, but does he not deserve it after his past life of murder and violence? He can't leave, and he can't die. After the game's events, Nico must live for all eternity in Liberty City, because Nico never actually arrived in Liberty City. The Platypus never reached its destination, because Nico is in hell.
GTA San Andreas Cheat Unknown is the first story we'll be looking at in Layer 3. This creepypasta is based on a real mystery in GTA San Andreas. It's about a hidden cheat code in the game in which no one knows what it actually does. For years, many people have speculated over what it could do when activated, but it seems that it was cut from the game right before release and now it does nothing. But this creepypasta tells a different story about what it could actually do. You know the cheat code in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas? The one that no one has any idea what it does? It's on almost all of the cheat sites for it, usually under the title of Unknown Cheat. And it'll say cheat activated, as would any other cheat, but nothing happens. I recently found out what it did, and I was disturbed by it. Never type the cheat in, for the sake of your life. If you don't believe me, that's fine. Just do not test it to prove me wrong. You'll regret it. It was last weekend. I typed the cheat in and it went as expected. The cheat activated message came up with no effect, but while I was walking up Los Santos, I saw something strange on the sun as it set. It was a small object I had never seen before. I had to fly up to see it. I typed in the jetpack cheat and flew up after it. As I got closer, my body instinctively shook. Subconsciously, I must have feared something, but I didn't even know what it was. My body obviously wanted me to avoid it, but I kept going. I heard CJ began making sobbing sounds, and out of nowhere he began to shiver. I was scared and decided not to go. As soon as I landed, CJ was still shivering and making sounds which proved he was afraid. When I pressed the triangle button to get off the jetpack, he ran on his own away from the sun. I wasn't moving the controls and I couldn't control him. He just kept running away from the sun. This was one hell of a cheat code to get this disturbing, let alone to not be noticeable, but nobody really flew that close to the object after pressing that cheat, I suppose. I wanted to know what would happen if I kept going towards it. All of a sudden the screen said cheat activated, and CJ committed suicide, as if the suicide cheat code was typed in. But I hadn't pressed anything for a while. The weird thing is, if you get busted, CJ normally wakes up in the police station, and if you get wasted, CJ normally wakes up in the hospital. But this time, he got wasted, and he woke up in a very random place in the middle of nowhere by the highway. I had control again, so I typed up the jetpack and headed towards the sun, and the object was still there. Just like last time, everything was going normal until I got close enough, and CJ began reacting in ways that weren't coded in the game. The screen blurred off and on as if it were having trouble loading something, and my PS2 was making an awful sound as if it were recording the game, which wouldn't have surprised me. I'll be honest, I was completely freaked out about this, but I had to know what was on that sun, so I kept flying until I reached it. Once I got close enough to see what it was, CJ began bleeding. Bleeding in such a way that the blood poured out like a bucket, which was abnormal for the game. CJ kept breathing heavily, but I kept going. My controller began vibrating, and it didn't have the vibrating power like special controllers do. It kept shaking very fast. The PS2 was producing a weird burning smell, and that's when I was about to quit, afraid for my game. But it was too late anyway. CJ landed himself, looked at the screen, and just stared. His face looking depressed and scared. He was crying, or so it seemed. It convinced me to go on and see what this cheat did. If the game was burning, it's obviously already too late to turn it off, so I grabbed the controller, went on the jetpack, and kept going. Things kept getting more real the closer I got. The graphics, the jetpack producing smoke from the fire looking more real. CJ's blood and sobbing sounds, the trees, the wind, and the sun. The object was just a random black circle, by the way. The object was just a random black circle, by the way, and I found that out a little while before the screen began blurring. Everything kept getting realistic, and it scared me. While I got up to the hole, CJ made a loud screaming sound that made me jump, screamed like a little girl, but in a male voice. The game went black as soon as he entered, and I could have sworn in the blackness I saw the interior of my friend's house right next door. And I heard CJ breathing as he stood in there, although I could hardly see it. Everything was realistic, not video game graphics. CJ was taller than an average man, and he was in realistic graphics. But I swore that was my friend's house. The game crashed from burning too much, and it went blank. I was very disturbed, but the questions I had about it were far more interesting. The scarier part is, my friend's carpet was stained from blood, and the room was smoky, as if something was burning.
The truth about Fort Zancudo is a story about, well, the truth of Fort Zancudo, and what is hiding within it. Now, this might have just been a Mandela effect, but what is described in this story, or at least the part about a hidden area within the base, was actually an early rumor during the Xbox 360 and PS3 days that I vividly remember that doesn't seem to exist anymore. So I don't know if that's what this story took inspiration from or not, but honestly, the UFOs and aliens probably were instead, but you be the judge of that when I read the story. But anyways, here it is. I was having an ordinary GTA 5 online session with my friend. The typical stuff, you know, killing cops, getting 5 stars, strip club, VIP work, invading the military base, and so on. But it's that last one where it got weird. Me and my friend were in Fort Zancudo, in the tower you can get in from the ground next to the airstrip, and we were role-playing that we were gathering intel and getting rid of evidence. We were shooting out monitors when all of a sudden from the tower we saw a door open, but it was hidden in the airstrip. Us shooting out a monitor opened a secret area in the military base. Us freaking out obviously charged down the tower to get to this door, thinking it was an Easter egg left by Rockstar. As we get out, my friend gets killed by a tank, but I manage with great effort to evade and make it to the door, and as I get inside, I wait for my friend, but as he tries to get back down there with me, the door above me starts to close. As it does, I figure I might as well just go down anyways. Maybe there is a way to open the door from the inside. When I walk through another door, my game freezes, and when it fixed itself, I found myself in a lab, with empty stasis tubes and surgical desks everywhere. At this point, my phone dies, and I lose contact with my friend. So I go to plug it in, and as I do, the lights in the game go red. And what I thought were empty stasis tubes open, and the fog inside them disperses. Creatures start to fall out of these tubes, and they're oddly shaped, like nothing I've seen in the game. And they're gray. They're aliens, and when I say aliens, I don't mean like the alien costumes you could buy or use in director mode. These things didn't even have models in the game files. I looked. As I gather my thoughts on what I'm seeing, they start to get up. Oh great, they start approaching. I go to equip my MG Mark II, and it's not allowing me to equip items. I try to run, but my character is frozen, and as I lose all hope and accept my fate, my character pulls out his heavy pistol Mark II and aims it at his head, and he shoots. As I respawned, my phone comes back to life and I get a call from my friend. He asked what happened and if I found a glitch spot, because as soon as that door closed, it said I could choose the easy way out. I tried to explain, but he doesn't believe me. To him, no time passed. We continue on with our session, avoiding the fort, and instead we hop on a public session to mess with some fools and do the VIP work you can only do in public sessions. We get in his buzzard and my character climbs in the back, but doesn't get in. He instead climbs higher into the blades of the buzzard and dies. My friend and I are laughing as we find that hilarious, and we count it as a glitch and move on. Things like that continue throughout the rest of the session. My character finds ways to kill himself, like swimming into the engine of a boat, randomly holding grenades, and not pulling his parachute. I keep wondering how these things could happen if it's my computer lagging. It isn't the best after all. It comes to 11 PM and I need to get some sleep as I work at 7 the next morning. So I say goodnight to my friend and hung up the phone, and then close my game. It does the typical "are you sure you want to leave GTA Online" screen, and I say yes, but instead of closing the game, it gives me another screen. Text fades in, Helvetica font, black screen, white text, "forget what you saw," and plays the gunshot sound it did when my character first killed himself in the lab. I didn't notice until now, but it was different than the typical easy way out gunshot. After this, my game closes, no showing up the social club menu, just straight to desktop. Like it crashed, I haven't been able to open the door again, no matter what monitor I shoot with that weapon, but honestly I don't think I want to.
Ring Ring is, again, another story plagued with spelling and grammatical errors, but honestly has a decent premise. Taking inspiration from various real-life urban legends, along with some inspiration from a few horror movies. This story is also one of the longest in this video too, which honestly helps it flesh out the story a bit more compared to the rest, which makes it an interesting read, or for you guys to listen. This was my first ever time playing a game from the Grand Theft Auto series. After everything that happened, I really can't pick up another GTA game. It all started back a few years ago when GTA 4 was released. Everybody, and I mean everybody, was raving about the brand new GTA game. I heard people say it has crystal graphics, and this is definitely going to sell out the next COD and Battlefield. And since I never played a GTA game before, I thought it was about time that I did. It was the same day I bought my new PS3. I went to GameStop and purchased my brand new PlayStation 3 games console. To my surprise, GTA came free with my console. I was a regular at the GameStop, and the guy behind the counter said, "Just for being a good customer, take this." His name tag said, James Polton. He handed over a copy of GTA. It looked brand new and was still in the seal. Since I was excited, I rushed home. I got home and quickly opened the console box and whacked the PS3 out, as well as the cables, completely ignoring the booklets. I swiftly plugged it in, the HDMI power and everything. I then powered the console on. The first thing I did was get the internet working on it. I did so and noticed that there was a new update, so I started downloading it. My internet was pretty bad, so it took a while. While I was waiting, I cracked open the box of GTA. Everything was inside it, so I read the booklet while waiting. The booklet was thick, unlike a lot of games back then, with booklets that consisted of maybe 2 pages. The booklet had instructions and some of the story, and at the back there was a notes page that I briefly looked at and saw nothing. I noticed that the update was done, and I took the disc out of the box and put it in my PlayStation. The game started up with the normal loading screen with the nice drawings and stuff, and the game is finally loaded. I started playing, getting well into the story. And I had to say, this game was really living up to the expectations people had. I was playing for hours on end. I only did a few missions, but I was having so much fun killing people by running them over, shooting them, and all the fun stuff. But it was late, and I decided to save my game and turn off the PlayStation, and I went to bed. I had a great sleep. It was the weekend, and the first thing I did, of course, was turn on the PlayStation 3 and started playing again. I completed a lot more missions that day and thought I was around halfway through. The time seemed to fly by, and before I knew it, it was nearly 1 in the morning. I saved once again and went to sleep. It was Sunday, and I had a paper round every morning at around 6:30 in the morning. It took about 3 hours to deliver all the papers, but when I got home, I turned on the console and found I had a friend request. One from my friend and one from someone that I didn't know. I accepted both of them. My friend later then invited me to a free roam game online. I joined. The person who had sent me a friend request earlier had also invited me to a game, so I invited him back. They joined. I took out my microphone and then turned it on. I put it on my ear and called my friend from within the game. He didn't have one, so I called the other person from within the game. They answered. I could hear heavy breathing. I said, can you hear me? A croaky voice whispered, yes. I asked if they could talk normally, and they snapped at me saying, I am. The shout was loud, and I mean really loud. It almost broke my headset. They said, I'm sorry. I just get really mad sometimes. I replied, are you a boy or a girl? A girl, she croaked back, and I heard a faint smoker's laugh in the background. I bombarded her with questions like, well, how old are you? She replied, older than you might think. I then started asking her 9, 10, 11, 12? She wouldn't say. I looked at the clock. Oh, crap! I shouted. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I have school today, damn it! I quickly said, bye. No reply. I turned off the console and set my alarm and drifted off to sleep. At school, everybody was talking about the new GTA game. I told my friends I had it, but most of them I had Xbox, so I couldn't play with them. I noted down the names of friends who had GTA on the PlayStation, and after a long day of school, I rushed home to play it. I thought about whether I should do my homework, and I just said, fuck that, and powered on the PS3. I added all the friends' names I noted down. That girl was online again. I started up GTA, and it said there was a new update. I started to download it. I got out the instruction booklet again and went to see if there was anything after the notes page. Nope, just more notes pages. But on the last note page, it said, not stable, trash it. I wondered what it meant. I mean, I hadn't encountered any bugs or glitches since I got the game. The update finished. I went to single player and went around killing people. Finally, I said. My friend came online. He invited me to a party lobby so people could only be invited. The girl sent me a message. It said, do you like me? I replied, I don't know. We haven't really spoken that much. The girl then somehow joined our private lobby. My friend had bought a microphone that day, and as soon as we joined, the first thing we both said was, the fuck? We were confused. We didn't know how she joined. We heard her say, hey guys, with her weird croaky voice. None of us answered. She said, are you two there? Once again, we didn't answer, hoping she would leave. I know you're there. I can see you. She snapped once again, nearly breaking my headset. I finally worked up the courage to say, how can you see me? She replied with, don't be so nosy. I looked up at my iToy and realized the light was on. I swiftly got up and unplugged it. Me and my friend then left and went to a free roam game online. The girl followed us though, and she joined. She rang me from within the game. I answered. She started saying, ring, 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 ring. I asked her what her name was. She answered with, Vanessa. And she said it really slowly. It was 10 o'clock and I thought I should get an early night. The next day dragged on because I kept thinking about all the fun I could have on Grand Theft Auto. In the last session, I remembered I didn't do my homework. The teacher gave me an after-school detention, and that also dragged on. When I was done with the detention, I headed home, and I instantly turned on GTA. I went into single player and thought I should do some missions. I then got a message from within the game, from someone called Vanessa. I looked at it. It said, ring ring, ring ring, ring ring. I wasn't only thinking about the creepy message, I was also thinking about how the fuck she sent me that message. I opened up the XMB and deleted Vanessa, but she wouldn't go off my friends list. She rang me from within the game, and I declined. She sent me another message. I can see you. I went outside of my house on GTA and started bumping into people. The only thing they replied with was, move, Vanessa's coming for me. I got scared. People who answered the phones said, hey Vanessa. I received another message within the game from Vanessa, and this time it was a picture. The picture was of a girl with scars on her face, a bleeding neck, messy hair, red eyes, and a smile. A smile showing all her teeth. Her teeth were bloody. I started killing people and was killed by the police. When I respawned, everybody was dead. Their bodies were all on the floor. I was being followed by a single woman. She kept saying, "I can see you." I was creeped out, and I died, randomly. The picture Vanessa sent me earlier showed up on the screen. There was a caption. It said, "I can see you." And it disappeared. I respawned, and everybody had the face of Vanessa. I got scared. I didn't want to play it again. So I waited until the next weekend to go back to GameStop, and I took the game with me. The manager was behind the counter, and I said, "I would like to return this game." He asked, "Why?" I answered back with, "There's something wrong with the game." I showed him the notes page in the booklet and told him that it said, "Not stable. Trash it." When I received the game. "Who provided you with the game?" he questioned me. I was trying to remember back 2 weeks ago to who gave it to me. It was James Polton," I said. But then the manager said, "He's been dead for 3 years. I asked, "How?" The manager answered, "He was murdered." I then rushed home, not even taking the money for returning the game. I jumped on my laptop, headed over to google.co.uk and searched James Polton murder. The search results were hundreds of pages relating to James Polton. I clicked the top link. I read about him and how he was murdered by someone named Vanessa, his daughter. Near the bottom, there were buttons to show hidden content. Many pictures appeared of a huge gash in his stomach. I held down the power button to turn off my laptop as fast as I could. I turned on my PS3 and looked at my friends list. Vanessa was gone. I had a message of her. It said, "I can see you."
The Mysterious Car is a short creepypasta that I honestly don't need to waste time explaining, mainly because the story isn't really that good and because it's just so short, so here it is. So I was fooling around in Grand Theft Auto 5 playing as Trevor. After dying a few times, I spawned at the hospital at night. I continued to run around, but I noticed that there were no cars on the road. After about 10 minutes of this, I saw one car when I looked down the road. It was an old, rusty, beaten up lowrider with a top, but there was no one driving it. I saw this sometimes in Grand Theft Auto, but this time the car just stopped and stayed there. I tried to steal the car, but nothing happened. I started to walk away about 20 seconds later and turned around and there was no car there anymore. There still were no cars on the road, and at this point I shut off my PlayStation and then turned it back on again. The game started to load in as usual, but when I spawned in, I was in the middle of the road of the highway at the middle of the night. No cars. I was starting to get scared, and then I saw the car again. It drove up the same way and stopped. This time when I went to get into the car, I died instantly. When I spawned again, I was at the top of Mount Chiliad. And guess what? The car was right there. I then once more tried to get into the vehicle, and this time the whole game crashed. When I opened it again, the car was outside of Trevor's house, with Michael and Franklin sitting in the front seats dead. I walked to the car, then tried for the final time to get into the front seat. I was able to, but then the car started driving itself, like a taxi. I stayed in the car, and it brought me to the top of Mount Chiliad. It made me get out, then out of nowhere, I got shot in the head and died, but this time it would not let me respawn. I watched Trevor's body fall down the mountain. I kept watching to see what would happen next. I then saw Michael and Franklin's dead body come smashing into the ground. Then the car came down, landing right on top of my body, then exploding. I turned the game off, deleted it off my console, then reinstalled it. It has not happened since, and I hope it never happens again, to me or any of you.
GTA Tempest is the longest story in this video, as it's almost 8 pages long and is the longest GTA creepypasta ever made, hence why it kicks off the 4th and final layer for this video. Honestly, there is no reason to give an introduction to this creepypasta, because it would take too long, and I wouldn't be able to describe it well or do it justice. Also, again, just like with the previous entries, this one took a lot of time to fix spelling errors and overall grammatical issues, so if any slip past cracks or if Google Docs couldn't fix them, just know that Google did its best. But finally, let's get into it. There are many myths surrounding Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, from aliens to serial killers. The game has its fair share of myths and secrets. However, Among all of these, there is one myth that I haven't seen anyone mention before on the internet. The man with an umbrella. Umbrella Man, or as it's sometimes called, the Rainmaker. Let me tell you about it then. My name is Matthew, and I used to work at a bar up until last week, but I had some trouble with my employer, and now I'm unemployed and going through some financial troubles. But that is unrelated to the story. This morning I was looking through my old stuff when I found a thin, transparent, square plastic packet with a DVD in it. There was also a paper inside the packet with the box art of GTA San Andreas printed on it. It was a GTA disc that I had bought when I was a kid. The reason it wasn't in a fancy case cover was because it was a pirated game. Allow me to explain. It's really hard to buy games where I live. Games are very expensive here, and the internet is slow as well, so torrents aren't an option either. As an alternative, there are many small shops in the city where pirated games are sold, for as low as $1. When I was a kid, almost everyone bought these pirated games. I had two best friends at the time, Kyle and Paul. Their personalities were quite opposite to each other. Paul was a rough and bad-tempered kid who always got into trouble at school, while Kyle was a kind and gentle guy with really pale skin and a frail body. He suffered from a disease in which he got really sick if he became too excited or agitated. I think that's why he always tried to stay calm, no matter what happened. One day, Kyle and Paul decided to pool our money together and buy as many games as we could. We headed to a newly opened shop near Paul's house. Behind the counter was an old man who was reading a book. "What do you want?" he asked. Do you have PC games?" I responded. He picked a pile of transparent plastic packets which contained DVDs and papers with games boxes art on them, and put them on the counter. "Pick whatever you want," he said. We had already decided beforehand which games we wanted. Do you have San Andreas?" Paul asked. "I don't know. These are all the PC games here. Find it yourself," he replied rudely. Paul frowned and was going to say something to the old man, but he restrained himself and began looking through the pile of games. I sighed in relief. Paul's temper always got him into trouble. I knew Paul was going to snap if that old guy said anything again, so I quickly started rummaging through the pile of discs and decided to get the heck out of there. After searching for a few minutes, Kyle showed us the disc. "I found the game." He smiled. He seemed unusually happy and excited about it. I kind of regretted bringing him with us now, as I knew that GTA was quite violent and perhaps even dangerous for Kyle's health. Of course, we 11, 12-year-olds shouldn't be playing this type of game in the first place, but none of our parents were good with computers or knew anything about games. So, we bought a few other games and went to Paul's and then Kyle's house to install the games on all of our computers. And then I went alone to my home with all the games, eager to finally get a chance to play GTA San Andreas. I tried running the game, but it didn't work. I clicked on the new game and watched the opening scene with Carl at the airport, and after that, it just crashed. I tried fixing it, but it didn't work. The next morning, I met Paul and Kyle and asked them about the game. "Really? You couldn't run the game?" Paul said in a surprised voice. "It runs perfectly on my computer. Maybe it's your PC's fault," he said. "You should try returning the game to that old man. Or perhaps exchanging it for something that works," Kyle said, smiling. "But the game runs on both of your computers, so I don't think it's the game's fault. Asking for money by returning it would be wrong," I replied. "I don't think that man is smart enough to notice," replied Kyle. I always thought Kyle was an honest kid, but I guess I was wrong. "Yeah, that old bastard deserves it," Paul said with a smile on his face. I went to that shop alone after school. Paul said he didn't want to see that man again, and Kyle was hooked on the game. When I entered the shop, the old man was nowhere to be seen, but I could hear someone talking in a small room in the corner of the shop. I tried to listen. "What? Modded games? I wanted the original, you fucking moron! What do you mean you made a mistake?" Someone was shouting in that room. "What do you mean half of them are original? I need all of them just the way I ordered. I will return the modded ones to you on Monday." "What? You won't take them back?" I was thinking of getting out of there, but I stood my ground. Damn it, that bastard. How dare he end the call like that? A man holding a phone in his hand walked out of the tiny room and stood behind the counter. He was around 25 years old. Sorry about that, kid. I didn't notice you were in here. How can I help you?" I bought a San Andreas disc from your shop and, let me guess, something's wrong with it. Yeah. The man sighed and told me he won't give me my money back, nor would he exchange the game. Instead, he offered me a new San Andreas disc at half the price. I agreed and handed him the money. He took out a disc and looked at the cover carefully as if checking for something wrong. Alright, I think this is the right one. He handed me the disc and continued, and sorry about my dad's behavior. He doesn't really like video games, and I was out of town. If I was here, then you wouldn't have gotten the wrong game. I left the shop and went home. I installed the game, and it worked perfectly. Within a month or so, almost every kid at the school had San Andreas, and most of us had completed the story too. Soon after, everyone started talking about the myths like Bigfoot and aliens that were supposed to be present in the game. Many kids would spend hours upon hours just looking for them. One day, Kyle told everyone that he had found a secret in the game and invited everyone to his house. After school, I, Paul, and 5 other guys went with Kyle to his house. Kyle turned on his computer and started the game. I wondered what Kyle wanted to show us so desperately. After about 15 minutes, one of the boys started to get impatient. "Do you even know what you're doing?" he said to Kyle. "Yeah, but I can't find him again," Kyle stammered. "Find who?" the boy asked, clearly annoyed. The man with the umbrella," Kyle replied calmly. "What?" Everyone looked at Kyle. "Yesterday I found a man standing at the San Fierro docks, holding an umbrella. It was raining heavily and there was a lot of fog as well. The strange thing was, there were no other characters on the map. Just him. There was a red mission marker in front of the man, but I thought it must be a secret mission, so I saved the game. I loaded it just now, but I can't find it anymore." As you might expect, no one believed Kyle and said that he was just making it all up. Kyle didn't come to school the next day, so I went to see him and Paul tagged along too. He was in the hospital. His parents said that he was really sick all of a sudden. So I went to see him and Paul tagged along too. He was in the hospital. His parents said that he was really sick all of a sudden. Somehow I could tell that it was because of the game. I could tell that he was really upset about the fact that no one believed him about that Umbrella Man thing. When I was returning home in the evening, it started raining. "Man, I wish I had an umbrella now," I chuckled. "I wish I had an umbrella now," I chuckled. It was around 11:25 p.m. My cell phone rang. It was Kyle. "Hello?" said a raspy voice. Kyle?" I wondered why he was calling so late. I found him," he said happily. "The man with the umbrella. I found him." I didn't reply to him. Something wasn't right. To be totally honest, I didn't believe in Kyle when he first mentioned the Umbrella Man before. I'm not saying he was lying or anything, I just thought he was probably mistaken. He continued, "You won't believe how hard it was to find him, Matthew. To find him..." Kyle's voice was abruptly cut off by the sound of thunder. "Great. Just what I need. More fucking rain." I cursed. I couldn't make out what Kyle was trying to say. I tried listening. I think he said, "Fog. I can't see anything. It's raining so hard." His voice was feverish. It was almost like he was delusional or something. Finally, all I could hear on Kyle's end were the sounds of rain and thunder. Frustrated, I ended the call and walked to my window. I had to see how hard it was raining. I opened the curtains and looked out of the window. It wasn't raining at all. I have a really unfortunate announcement to make today. One of our valuable students, Kyle Garrison, passed away yesterday. I could hardly believe my ears. Kyle is dead? Later that day, rumors started spreading that the man with the umbrella killed Kyle. Obviously, those other boys who were at Kyle's house that day had their hand in these rumors. Paul was pissed off about how instead of showing some respect for our dead friend, every other kid had turned him into fodder for their gossip. The next day I read an article about Kyle's death in the newspaper. Obviously there was no mention of any man with an umbrella. The report only described Kyle's illness as the cause of his death. One thing which puzzled me was that the news said that he died at 10:25 p.m. So how in the fuck's name did I get that call from Kyle 1 hour after his death? I told Paul about it and even showed him the call log on my phone.
It must be the newspaper's fault. Maybe they misprinted 10 instead of 11. My dad always complains about such errors in the newspaper, Paul said. Maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. I agreed. But that still doesn't explain the sounds of rain and thunder during that call. I could see the hospital building from my bedroom. It's not as if it only rained around the hospital or just in Kyle's room. Maybe the sounds were coming from Kyle's computer. He did say that he was playing San Andreas during that call. But the sounds seemed so real. 1 year after Kyle's death, Paul and his family decided to move to Australia due to his father's job or something. I wasn't so sad about it because after Kyle's death, our friendship kind of fell apart. It's hard to explain what happened. You see, Kyle was always smiling and calm, whereas Paul always had a bad temper or got angry over almost anything. They seemed to complement each other's personality perfectly, and it created a sort of harmony within our group. With Kyle gone, being around Paul got kind of irritating. Still, we talked to each other once or twice a week. On the day that Paul's family was to leave for Australia, I got a call from him. You remember that mystery that Kyle was chasing after? Paul asked. Yeah, but why are you bringing it up now? Dude, I found it. What? I said that I found that man with the umbrella. But how is that? Listen, I'll tell you all about it after I get to Australia. It's a long story, and I have to leave for the airport now. Paul ended the call after that. Needless to say, I was curious. Very curious. Maybe we'll help shed some light on the many mysteries surrounding Kyle's death. But Paul never called again. I waited for months for any call or message from him. In the end, I thought that Paul was just trying to tease me, as Paul knew exactly how I felt about Kyle's death. Maybe it was his idea of revenge. Considering the fact that I pretty much avoided Paul after what happened with Kyle, maybe he grew to hate me or something. Now it's been 10 years since all that happened, and I'm sitting here looking at the pirated disc in my hands remembering these old friends. Even after all these years, I still haven't forgotten about that phone call from a dead friend all those years ago. I think I know what happened. I think Kyle wasn't lying. There really was a man with an umbrella in San Andreas, or something that resembled that man. Kyle's health took a turn for the worse after everyone started calling him a liar, and as a result, Kyle began his frantic search for the Umbrella Man. Eventually, he must have found it, and the excitement of the moment led to his untimely death. As for the rain and thunder sounds, they must have been coming from his laptop. They had to be. The newspaper's time must be just as Paul said, a simple misprint. This is what I've been telling myself all these years. I've tried looking for the Umbrella Man. I've tried every method rumored to trigger it, but none of them seem to work. The reason why, I don't know, but the methods are all just rumors, I suppose. The only people who I believe have seen the Umbrella Man were Kyle and maybe Paul. Suddenly, the realization hit me. That's it! That's fucking it! I can't believe I didn't think about this before. The disc! This fucking San Andreas disc! The game Kyle and Paul had played was this game. The one that I held in my hands. It was this modded game that they were playing. Not the regular San Andreas. I realized that I had never had the chance to play this game because my PC couldn't run it back then, so I just always played the regular game. But both of my friends were using this version all along. I put the game disc in my drive and soon installed the game. I played for a long time, doing missions and progressing the storyline further, and eventually I got to San Fierro City. Then I saved the game and slumped back in my seat with disappointment. It was just the regular game. There was nothing different aside from the fact that the graphics were maybe a little bit better than the original. But then an idea came into my head. I had yet to take a look inside the game's folder. I took out another disc from my cupboard. It was the regular and unmodded San Andreas that I had been playing for all these years. I installed it in my D drive, which I never used to install the games. Great, now I have both versions in my computer. I said to myself and began comparing the files of the modded version with the regular version. Most of the files and folders were the same, except one. There was a folder called Tempest in the modded version, and it contained a lot of files which I believed were for the mod. I tried looking through them, but due to my lack of experience in hacking and modding, I couldn't understand what each file was used for. There must be more than 100 files. Maybe that's why this game required a more powerful PC than the one I had in the past. In the end, after sorting through all the files, I was able to find one text document which I could make sense of. It was named Rainmaker Beta 0.5. I figured that this might be the name of the mod. It went something like this.
I thank everyone who decided to give this project of mine a try. A lot of people ask me about what this mod adds to the game and why its size is so big as compared to your regular game. The purpose of this mod is to improve the graphics quality of your game, and it also has an extra mission, but I won't tell you about it though. Think of it as a treasure hunt. This mod might change your life. I would really like your feedback. Please tell me everything that you've experienced while playing the game. You can even tell me about something which happened after playing. Anything out of place. Please don't forget to leave your feedback. Keep in mind that this game requires a lot more power to run than the regular mods out there. Once again, I thank you for playing. Tempest. P.S. I really enjoy listening to the radio late at night. At least it's confirmed now that this game is a mod, and the line about the radio is probably a clue. I spent the entire evening playing the game, driving around while switching radio stations and listening hard for any clues regarding the Umbrella Man. Eventually, around midnight, in game time, I switched to WCTR radio station and heard what sounded like a news report. Little Melissa has been spotted once again near San Fierro docks. The rest of the transmission was full of static and unclear. Who is that Melissa? I thought to myself. The radio also mentioned something else about San Fierro docks. I remembered how Kyle described his first encounter with that man. I immediately took a U-turn and started driving towards the docks. As I was driving towards the dock, I noticed that traffic had started to dwindle quickly, and soon it started to rain, and a thin layer of fog had also appeared. By the time I arrived at the docks, all the streets and roads were empty and devoid of all signs of life, and there was a thick layer of fog all around. I could see a red light in the distance, and I started to move towards it. Upon getting closer to the source of light, I finally found what I was looking for all this time. In front of me, there was the sight that Kyle, and perhaps Paul, too, saw all those years ago. Standing before me, there was a man holding an umbrella, and in front of him was a red mission marker. He was bald, and his whole body was pitch black. He didn't even have a mouth. The only thing he had were eyes, just a pair of regular eyes. And of course, he was holding a bright red umbrella open over his head. I suddenly felt really stupid. This entire situation was absurd. I wasted this entire morning and who knows how many days in the past looking for this? Just an NPC in a modded GTA game? I felt really stupid to even think that this game had something to do with Kyle's death. There it is, just a fucking NPC to look at me with its lifeless eyes. Probably made by some amateur modder. I'm not sure why, but I always thought that somewhere in the back of my mind that once I find this thing, all the mystery and confusion surrounding my friend's death will end. Wait. If this man exists, what about Paul? I always thought Paul was lying about the Umbrella Man and just wanted to tease me, but if this man exists, then it means that Paul is probably telling the truth and really planned on calling me back. So why didn't he? Did he lose my phone number or something? My eyes were fixed on the red marker in front of the Umbrella Man now, and after a moment of slight hesitation, I stepped into it. The screen faded to black and a mission started, called Deep Within Her Heart. When the screen appeared again, I was still at the docks, but the Umbrella Man had disappeared. Blue text appeared at the bottom, which read, "Find Little Melissa." I looked at the radar at the corner of my screen. There was a blue square telling me where to go. I typed in the code for the jet and started flying towards the target. I was flying over the sea for about 5 minutes, and it reminded me about that mission where you had to go to Liberty City by flying towards the sea. While I was doing all this, a thought crossed my mind. Who was this Melissa, and why was the mission leading me towards the sea? I assumed that maybe she was some girl who drowned. Just an act of imagination, I guess. Finally, I reached the spot indicated on the map. I exited the jet and opened the parachute and slowly started to descend. I turned my camera downwards to see what was under me, and floating in the stormy and fog-shrouded area below me was a big, old, and rusty ship. On the side of the ship, 2 words were written in fading and decaying paint. Little Melissa. So, Little Melissa was a ship. It looked abandoned, though. On the deck, I saw a red marker, and after abandoning my parachute, I walked into it. Blue text appeared again at the bottom of the screen, and it read, "Investigate the ghost ship." Another blue square appeared on the radar. I started walking towards it and soon found myself inside the ship. The walls and doors of the ship were rusted, and in front of me was a long corridor. At the start of the corridor was another red marker, and after walking into it, Blue text appeared once more, and it read, "Find the captain's log." My next destination was past the corridor, so I started sprinting through the corridor, but a text appeared that sent chills down my spine. "Don't look at the ceiling." The text was in bright purple color. Needless to say, I crossed the entire corridor while looking at the ground. I thought that the mission would fail if I tried looking at the ceiling, but eventually the corridor ended, but I still had to traverse a maze of small corridors and stairs. And not long after that, I got lost. It was too hard to run while looking at the ground all the time. So I decided to turn the camera up and look at the ceiling to see if something really happened. I moved my mouse back and forth, looking up and down. I waited for a few seconds to see if something would happen, but it didn't. No mission failed screen appeared, nor any penalty. So I continued onwards toward the target. Finally, I entered a small room with a desk in it. Sitting on the desk was an open book, and in front of the desk was the red marker. I walked into the marker, and text started appearing at the bottom of the screen. July 2nd. It has been 3 days since the storm started, and it's still raining with the same intensity as it was on the day it started. I hope it stops soon. July 3rd. Everyone seems uneasy, and all methods of communication with the outside world are down. We have to prepare for the worst. July 4th. Many sailors report seeing a man with a red umbrella on the deck despite the violent storm. Some even claim to see him around passenger cabins, still holding that damned umbrella. Some sailors claim that he's a ghost or something. I have to stop these rumors. July 5th. More reports of that man with the umbrella. This time he is seen even in places where no passengers are allowed to go. Both sailors and passengers are getting uneasy and anxious. July 6th. 3 sailors and 2 passengers have disappeared. Everyone is blaming the man with the umbrella. I have to investigate. July 7th. 8 passengers have been missing since yesterday. Everyone, including soldiers. Everyone, including sailors, are panicking now. I have to assign more sailors to patrol the ship at night. July 8th. Every single person I sent out to patrol has disappeared, along with 10 more passengers. Communications are still down and we need help. July 9th. I checked the entire ship today. I couldn't find anyone. No passenger or sailors aboard. What is going on? All lifeboats are here too. They couldn't have evacuated. July 10th. I finally found someone on the ship. It's that man with the red umbrella. I only saw him from a distance, but I'm scared now. The storm is getting even more violent and I can't find anybody else. July 11th. I am alone in my cabin and hiding from whatever is out there. That thing is knocking at my door for hours now, and it doesn't show signs of stopping anytime soon. I remembered something a friend told me many years ago when I was a new sailor. He told me about a monster who is said to roam this part of the ocean. He told me that the monster causes violent storms and tortures the sailors. Could it be that this current situation is caused by that monster? July 12th. The storm finally stopped, so I searched the entire ship once again. When I was about to open the large set of doors leading to the dining hall, I thought I heard a sound from inside. So I pressed my ear up against the door and listened. I could hear very faint screams and what sounded like rain and thunder from inside the room. Was everyone in there? The storm had already passed, so why were there any sounds at all? Inside the ship, especially. I'm back in my cabin and I'm grabbing my gun. I'll report on my findings once I return. If I return, that is. The text stopped appearing and I got my next objective in red letters. Face the Rainmaker. A red triangle pointing downwards appeared on the radar indicating my next destination. While traveling towards it, I ventured into some rooms along the way. And when I looked out of the circular windows, I noticed something different. The storm had stopped. Upon getting closer to the point indicated on the map, I came across a set of big double doors with a red marker in front. When I walked into the marker, I heard screams. Must be hundreds of them coming from the other side of these doors. And I also heard something which creeped me out even more. I could hear what sounded like thunder and rain coming from inside the room. It reminded me of that call I received from Kyle on the night of his death. The screen faded to black, and when it appeared again, I was inside a giant room covered in fog, darkness, and rain. I looked up and saw there was a metal ceiling several feet over my head. How the hell was it raining then? I walked further in the room,
and found the umbrella man standing several feet away from me. I was startled by a sudden clash of thunder, and I noticed the rain was falling with more intensity now and the fog was getting thicker. Soon, the entire screen was filled with fog, and I couldn't see anything else but only the silhouette of the umbrella man. Suddenly, blue text appeared on the bottom of the screen. It said only one word: run. Then I noticed the silhouette of the umbrella man getting closer to me, and I started to run away from it. But due to all the fog, I couldn't see where I was going. After running for several minutes, I found the corpse of an old man. He was wearing the uniform of a ship's captain, and there was a pistol floating over his corpse. I picked the pistol up and aimed it at the umbrella man. He stopped moving immediately, and fog started to slowly disappear. I noticed something odd. You know when you aim at a character in the PC version, with a mouse you can see a triangle on top of their head, which shows the health of the character? Green, yellow, orange, red, and finally black, with the green being high health and black meaning dead. Well, the triangle over the head of the umbrella man was black. Regardless, I started firing on him. He didn't even seem to flinch, and soon I ran out of ammo. Fog started to appear again, and I could hear hundreds of screams coming from every direction. Beyond the fog, I could see the silhouette of the umbrella man running towards me at full speed, and in his hand he held his umbrella, which was now closed, and its tip was sharp and pointed. He was wielding it like a melee weapon. I tried running away from him, but he quickly caught up to me, and just as he was about to strike, the game crashed. I just sat there, staring at my desktop screen, and slowly shifted my gaze to the bottom right corner of my monitor and noticed that it was almost 11:25 p.m. I clicked the shutdown button and then decided to lie down on my bed to process everything that just happened. As I was laying there staring at my ceiling in my darkened room, I remembered how the game said, "Don't look at your ceiling." In the purple text, I wondered what all that was about. As I was looking at the ceiling, I noticed something odd. I decided to turn the lights on, but I was too exhausted to do it. My eyes started to get heavy, and soon I was fast asleep. I opened my eyes. It was bright outside, almost too bright. Everything felt different. My doorbell rang, and I lazily walked up to the door and opened it. A man with a really pale skin and long blonde hair was standing outside my door. He had a red umbrella which was covering half of his face. He moved his umbrella back and revealed his face and gazed at me with calm blue eyes and a kind smile. "It's been a long time, Matt," he said in a cheerful voice. "What? Kyle?" I asked in disbelief. "Paul wants to see you too." After saying that, he handed me his umbrella. The umbrella was not entirely red. It looked like someone took a bucket of paint and threw it on the umbrella, and paint didn't cover the entire surface. It had a sharp and pointed tip, which was about the size of a kitchen knife. I moved my hand across its surface. It had a strange texture, and its color, which wasn't covered by the red paint, was strange too. My eyes widened as I realized what was so strange about the umbrella. His smile grew even wider. "What the fuck is that thing?" "Don't say that, Matthew." "It's Paul. Not any regular umbrella," he chirped. "Oh my gosh! This umbrella, it's made out of Paul's skin?" "And bones, too," Kyle added. "Why?" I asked meekly. "Well, the boss thought Paul would make a fine umbrella. It's such a pain. The boss always wants it colored bright red, but it always gets dark after a few days," he complained. "What?" I asked with a scared and puzzled voice. "Never mind that. By the way, why did you look at the ceiling?" "Huh? Didn't I tell you to not look at the ceiling when you were playing that game? I had to go through so much trouble to send you that message," Kyle said in a slightly annoyed voice. "But I couldn't walk while looking at the ground." "I wasn't talking about in-game," he added before I could say anything else. "Why does it matter even if I did? Who is the boss of yours anyway?" "Boss was looking at you at the time, and trust me, he doesn't like you when you meet his eyes." "You're not making any sense. As for who he is, Boss is the one referred to as the Rainmaker. You saw him too, didn't you?" I don't get it." He sighed deeply and took the umbrella from my hands, which I had forgotten that I was holding all this time, and said, "Just remember one thing. He can see through every drop of rain."
I woke up. I was breathing heavily and there were drops of water falling on my chest from the ceiling. I got up from my bed and turned the lights on. I shifted my gaze upwards and saw a big dark stain on my ceiling with water leaking out of it slowly. Great, just what I wanted right now, I said, annoyed. I rubbed my eyes and looked around the room to decide what to do next. Just then, my eyes fell on my computer, and I remembered all the events which happened yesterday. I rushed to my window and looked out. As expected, it wasn't raining outside, and my room was on the 3rd floor of the building, and it had over 5 more floors on top of it. Even if it was raining, there's no way in hell that rain could leak into my room from the ceiling. Maybe it's the bathtub or something on the floor above. I tried to reassure myself, but at this point I knew exactly what and why this was happening. All my fears were proven true when I saw more and more stains appearing all over my ceiling, and more water started leaking from it. By this time, there was so much water leaking from the ceiling, it's almost as if it's raining in my apartment. I tried getting out of here, but the door is locked, and all the windows too. I tried calling someone for help on my phone, but they didn't seem to hear my voice. I thought of hiding somewhere, but Kyle's words echoed in my mind. Just remember one thing. He can see through every drop of rain. He had said that in a dream. There's no way out now. I've accepted my fate. I should have died like my friends all those years ago. By the time this tempest ends, I will no longer be here. Matthew Wilson has been missing for over a month now. Police believe that he ran away to escape the large amount of debt that he didn't plan on paying. The text above was taken from a small notebook which was found in his apartment. The police believe that the purpose of the story is just an attempt to hinder the investigation. After all, no disc mentioned in the notebook was found in the apartment. Yeah, that was a long one. And honestly, the premise was pretty good. And I don't think it was half bad, but let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments. This story is probably one of the most unique and fleshed out in this video, and honestly, I gotta give it props for that.
Now, after we just listened to probably one of the best and most fleshed out stories in this video, we now get to take a look at That Thing, which is the complete opposite of Tempest and isn't written well and is extremely vague in what the thing is in the story, but I guess that's kind of the point. But this creepypasta is short, so I'm not going to bother really explaining it, so let's just read it. You see, I'm someone who has played and completed over 6 games, and I wanted to try the best game of all time, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I have played it once on PS2, but there would be this glitch that I'd encounter whenever I was playing halfway through the mission, so instead I got a PC to try it on. I installed it and completed at least 49 missions. I was halfway through the 50th mission, but then suddenly a glitch happened. Cheat activated. What the heck? I didn't activate that. After that, a rocket came by me and destroyed me. After that, my game froze. It came back, but half of the map wasn't loaded. The scariest thing was, I saw all the pedestrians dead and stained in blood, but I saw a threat. I was pretty nervous to encounter him at first, but then with enough strength, I was able to catch up to him. When I got there, I found him, but he wasn't a man, he was a thing. It looked evil. I cut its head, but it started morphing again and again, until it killed me. Then when I respawned, I didn't go to the hospital. I instead was on the top of Mount Chiliad, where I was greeted with a jetpack. I flew it and went back there, but I found out that it morphed into my character, CJ. I was trying to kill it with an AK-47, but it threw things at me. I didn't install mods, but then when I was about to kill it, suddenly my game crashed, and when I tried to open it, a blue screen of death appeared, but then my computer glitched back into the game, and then I saw my character, and I was freaked out that I saw something disturbing. It said, RIP Carl Johnson, 1968 to 1992. Then again, the game crashed, and my computer was controlled and I got jump scared by a shadowy figure that had a mask. It turns out that he had hacked my PC and enabled a cheat randomly to kill me. Right there was the first time a sentence was used in the story, by the way. I wasn't just talking fast for no reason. This was the first time in the story there was a sentence. I just had to bring that up because how do you not do a sentence for that long? Anyways. But then I saw something disturbing. I found photos from my previous mission attempts, and he was stalking me. But he found a way and hacked me and somehow controlled everything. I'm devastated right now. Yeah, that one wasn't good at all. Well, actually the story was okay, but you know, the fact that there was no sentences made it a miserable read. But you know what? I don't know what I expected. I made this list. Why am I even complaining? I don't even know.
God on Applewood Street is, again, another extremely unique story that is probably the most underrated and obscure in this video, as there is no mention of it online apart from a wiki page. And it honestly deserves more attention because it's different compared to most GTA creepypastas. Again, this is one of those stories that doesn't need an introduction, as it would be hard to do, so here it is. So yeah, I've loved Grand Theft Auto for a long time. I don't mean to bore you with the details for too long, but when I was pretty young, I'm not quite sure when, but I want to say around when I was 10, my brother got Grand Theft Auto San Andreas for our family PS2. He was about 14, and I would just love watching him sit around and play it. He let me play it one day, and I fell in absolute love with the game. I had completed every quest and side quest, and so after that, I bought Vice City and 3. I didn't like either of them as much as San Andreas, really. When 2008 came around, my brother, who had just left for college, had bought me GTA 4 for my birthday. My family was going through some financial troubles at that time, and my brother, who had graduated with a 4.0 and a 35 on the ACT, could have gotten into any Ivy League school he wanted, but due to our financial situation, he had to settle with the University of Michigan. Plus, he was a broke college student at the time, so that was really awesome of him. Anyways, I got GTA 4, and yeah, it was awesome. By the time GTA 5 was announced, I had pretty much done everything to be done. I was stoked, to say the least. So yeah, flash forward 10 years. I'm 19 years old and going into my second year of college at Northern Michigan University. I was, and still am, a broken college student. When I was in class, I worked as a Chinese food delivery guy. I drove all over Marquette day and night. I had managed to scrounge up enough money to buy GTA 5. I remember I had to tell my boss I was sick so I could wait in line to get the game. After I got the game, I carefully tucked it into my back seat and drove home. Sadly, I didn't have that much time to play it because of classes and everything, so I only played it for a few hours every week. When winter break came, I was stoked, as I was going to go back home, and I could play all I wanted to. Also, in northern Michigan, the winters were literal hell. So, flash forward about a half a week later. It started when I was driving around in Palito Bay, a location that really reminds me of where I live today. I hit some guy walking across the street. Occasionally, I will zoom in on people after I kill them, so I can kind of see what they look like, but I got more than I expected. I now realize how creepy it is when I say that, but hey, whatever. The NPC that I hit today looked really realistic, and it had a ton of detail. GTA 5 is a really beautiful game, but this guy looked flat out like a normal guy. He honestly looked a lot like my dad. And there was even a scar on his left cheek from when he saved me from a wild dog when I was 5. Apparently, he wasn't dead. He limped off down the street and then faded off. I didn't feel like killing him because it just sort of felt wrong. So that night, we waited for my dad to come home from work. He usually just walked home as his work was about a quarter of a mile away. He works at a vet clinic. We waited for about an hour before we got worried. Finally, we got a phone call from the hospital and they told us what happened. Apparently, while he was walking home, a car spun out of control and hit him. He had broken his leg from the accident, so we went to visit him. He said that someone looking surprisingly like me hit him when he was crossing the street. It's no surprise, really, and he told us that they probably just hit a patch of ice. That's a pretty reasonable explanation. We are in Michigan anyways, and that year's winter was just brutal. When I went to bed that night, I couldn't help but think about what happened in the game, though, and how much that NPC looked like my dad. But I brushed it off and blamed it on this cold weather. So the next day, I was playing again, and there was another really in-depth NPC that looked a lot like my older brother. My brother is currently at Tulane University in New Orleans, getting his master's in education. I punched the NPC down and laughed a little, and said it was payback for all those years of tormenting me when I was a kid. I felt really bad when the NPC got up and he ran off. I stopped playing after that. I had a feeling like I did something wrong. I kept expecting my brother to call me or something, and he did. He called our house, and he told us today that he had been mugged by a guy wearing an NMU hoodie, and he tried to take his wallet, but my brother got away. After that, I ran up to my room and locked myself in it for a while. I couldn't help but feel responsible for this. I know he lives in New Orleans, and New Orleans can get pretty crazy at times, but I mean, the guy was wearing an NMU hoodie, and I went to NMU. I know I didn't do anything, but I feel like I really messed something up. I went right to bed after that. I stopped playing the game for a day or two, but I couldn't keep myself away. I put the game back in my Xbox and started playing again. After this, I felt like I needed to vent out my anger. So I went to Palito Bay and took out my carbine rifle and opened fire on a group of NPCs. After the cops got on me, I ran into Mount Chiliad and hung out for a while. It was about 11 p.m. and I was pretty tired, so I went to bed. At about 4:30 in the morning, though, the door knocked. My mom got it as she was awake for some reason. It was a cop at the door. I felt nervousness hit me like a brick, even though I knew I didn't do anything. I was thinking about all the wrong things I did last week. Sure, I snuck off to get high like twice a week, but I know any cops didn't see me, and if they did, they wouldn't give a shit. I heard him say, "Ma'am, is this the house of Justin Riversole?" Yeah, that's my son. What happened? Did he do something wrong?" "Ma'am, we have reason to believe that your son is responsible for a case of open firing at a crowd of 5 people downtown." I approached the cop very rudely, might I say. "What do you mean? I was here last night." "Back off, son. You're coming with me." He cuffed me and took me into his car. After staying a couple nights in the station, they let me go. They said that there was a man who looked exactly like me that opened fire at 5 senior citizens walking around town, and 2 of them had passed away. I told my parents all about what happened, and they helped prove that I was innocent. Although at this point, I was certain something was going on with the game. When I got home, winter break had about a day left, and I packed up all my stuff, except for my Xbox. I decided to play it one last time before I sold the game. When I first started playing, something very odd happened. I was in a new location. The map where I was didn't pull up, and when it did, it was just blank with my cursor in the center of it. The location was snowy and it felt similar to North Yankton. I tried walking backwards, but I got invisible walled. The location seemed to be an urban neighborhood looking very similar, if not identical, to my neighborhood. There was a sign that said Applewood Street. That's when I knew something was up, because that's the street that I live on, where my parents' house is, and the house I grew up in. I walked down the street and there was my house. All of the lights were off except for a glow in the top right room, which is oddly enough the room that I was in. The door opened when I pushed it, and everything was identical to my house. The stain on the carpet from where I spilled grape juice, the old weathered couch, it was all there. Then I lost control of Franklin. He slowly walked up the stairs, and I shit you not, I heard footsteps for every step of the way. I sat there, frozen in fear of what was going on. Franklin slowly opened the door at the end of the hall, and sitting there was a man watching a TV screen in the middle of the room. I slowly turned around to see myself with glowing white eyes staring at myself. He, or I, was crying, and said in a low voice, "Please, stop playing." In pure horror, everything twisted and warped and I passed out. But right before I fell unconscious, I swear I heard him say, "Thank you."
And again, we are back to another low quality story after a pretty decent one, with this story being, well, CJ.exe. Yeah, you guys thought you were safe, but nope, I of course had to slip in an exe story in here somewhere, so I thought I'd save the best for last, so prepare your ear holes for one amazing creepypasta. I just completed 100% completion on GTA San Andreas a few minutes ago, and I continued to play the game. I entered the all cars fly cheat, flew to Las Venturas, and went to the safe house in Prickle Pine. I saved the game in the safe house and left it. After a few hours of roaming around Las Venturas, there were no pedestrians nor cars. I don't know why, but even parked cars weren't there. Then I went back to the safe house on Prickle Pine. Once I entered the safe house, I saw bloodstains on the floor, which made me a bit scared. Then I entered the wardrobe and CJ wasn't in the mirror. Nothing was. It was just all black. Then I flew to Los Santos and went inside another safe house, but the wardrobe's mirror was still the same thing. Then I changed CJ's clothes and selected green hoodie, but it showed CJ wearing a bloody green hoodie. I had no choice, and I chose to wear it. A few minutes later, the screen goes black for no reason. After the game loads back, it showed CJ with no clothes on. He was still at the same place before the screen went black, and then I heard someone shooting an AK-47. After that happened, I knew that not all the pedestrians were gone. I was trying to search for the person that shot the AK-47, but I couldn't find him. I went back to Ganton and tried to fly the Hydra, but it exploded instantly and I got wasted. The weird thing is that I respawned in front of the graveyard in El Castillo del Diablo. I was so scared, so I spawned a jetpack to fly away from there. While I was flying, I suddenly saw someone down there, so I decided to fly down there and see what the person looked like. The person was CJ's clone. My CJ does not have any clothes on, and the clone had a hockey mask, black pants, and black shoes on. The hockey mask had a lot of blood on it, so I spawned some weapons using cheats. When I was about to kill him, the blue screen of death appeared. I turned off my computer and turned it back on. When I was about to search for GTA San Andreas, it was gone. All the files are gone, but there was a strange file left called CJEXE. When I clicked on it, it turned off my computer instantly. Dun dun dun! Yeah, that's CJEXE for you. And just like that, that is the grand finale for the Grand Theft Auto creepypasta Iceberg. Luckily for you though, I have another video just like this one that you can watch right here on screen called the Five Nights at Freddy's creepypasta Iceberg. And speaking of FNAF, again, thanks to Dr. Creepypasta for being in this video, and you can go subscribe to him right here.